No, before you go, Asia style. What's up guys, Harley Hoffman here from Malaysia. Together with Fox Buddy Sarah, I am going to be your host for this video. In this video I'm going to tell you everything from my own experience about traveling with your pet through Asia, which can be a lot. We have posted a lot of videos up before and we had so many questions that I thought let's do a video about it. In this video I'm going to take you with me through the following subjects. I'm going to tell you how and what you can expect when you are going to traveling with your pet, with the transport and how that works, with the border crossing, all the paperwork that you're going to need. I'm taking you with like accommodations, because traveling with your pet through Asia can be a lot, especially if you're coming from European countries or America, USA for example. My name is Harley Hoffman. I've been traveling with Sarah for over more than 2 years now. So I'm going to start with the first thing, and that will be traveling with your pet and transport. How does it work? Like, what can you expect from that? So in our own experience, most of the time we used to getting a private taxi or a private car, which can be sometimes pretty expensive. If you are going to drive from, take a sample from Thailand. In Thailand you are allowed to get in the trains, but you are only allowed to get third class. And whenever you book third class, you need to make sure that you have a cage with you where your dog fits in. It's a funny thing because in Thailand you go third class. If you are going to India, you will go first class. And in the first class in India, you have a private coop for yourself. So it's both different worlds, but both have a really good point. Because in India you have a private coop, so you won't be bothering anyone with your pet. And in Thailand you would have her in a cage in third class. Keep in mind, going third class in Thailand, and if you need to do like a train ride from Bangkok to Koh Samui, can up to take 10 hours. Spending 8 to 10 hours in third class, it's heavy. It's heavy. So whenever you're going to do that, pro tip, make sure that you book 2 extra seats so you and your missus or you alone have the full place for yourself. With Sarah we once had the problem that they wanted to decline it because she was too big or the cage wouldn't fit. After some talking we were lucky that we were allowed. But if your dog is like middle size, Sarah is size of a small border collie to keep you in mind, then they can sometimes be a bit more tricky. But make sure that you have always a cage with you and your valid ticket. Also a ticket is really cheap for your pet. It's also the same as human, so that's not really a problem. When we went to Laos, we could just get a bus. We just paid for an additional ticket and we got the bus. We always had the luck that we traveled in the low season everywhere we went to, so the buses, the public transport would never really be full, and that would mean that Sarah would be allowed, but it's always a bit tricky. You never really have 100% sure that you are allowed in it. So just keep in mind that whenever you travel you can also be declined and that you need to get a private transfer. So be flexible with that and just understand as well. For us Europeans, Western people, it's common to take your pet everywhere you want to go, but for people in Asia it's a bit less. From the transport we are going to the beaches because you want to take your dog with you, but you also want to have her to have a really good time, because what time would it be for her to just sit in the AC apartment? So beaches. Keep in mind that in some places, except for South Thailand, in India or Malaysia, a lot of people will have a huge Muslim population. So in some places they don't really appreciate whenever you are going to the beach or take your dog with you to the beach, to be more precise. Whatever, we have traveled to 8 countries, we take Sarah everywhere we go with us, also to the beach, and it never really has been a problem, or we never really got into some trouble. In most of the cages there are also a lot of stray dogs. We never experienced some rare scenarios with stray dogs or fighting, but we noticed that a lot of stray dogs on the beach are very territorial, so they can not always like it whenever your pet's there. But you can just take your dog to the beach wherever you go. Make sure that you always bring a cup of water with her or him, and that you have some food and some training to do the snacks. Sarah loves to swim in the ocean, but always make sure that your dog is a good swimmer. Sarah really is a good swimmer. But it's still, the current is so strong, the waves are so high, so never leave them alone or out of sight. Also, something that I wanted to talk is restaurants. It's always better to bring your furry friend with you, and how good is it that she or he can just go with the restaurant to you. How do you find the right restaurants that also allows pets in Asia? It can sometimes always be a bit tricky, but these days we have Google Maps. You can just go on Google Maps, type in dog friendly places, and always make sure that you read the comments about those places, because in a lot of cases they are that the staff is friendly and they're not really pet friendly, so Google Maps also pick that up. But always just double check if they are pet friendly and that she's good to go. In Thailand, for example, a lot of places would have an outside sitting area, or they wouldn't even have an inside shop, so you could just take your dog with you. Here in Malaysia it's a bit different than that, because a lot of places are Muslim owned, so they don't really appreciate a pet on the property. So you really have to go to the special pet cafes, which is pretty good because there are still a lot of options. Here left in India it's really easy, they just allow pets everywhere, because they are huge pet lovers. In Laos it's the same, they also love pets and are very friendly over there. So Sarah was going everywhere with us there. Also something that I want to talk about that Danique and I didn't really have a struggle with, but we found it a bit harder to travel to. For example, south of Thailand, some places of India and also in Malaysia, you have a bit of higher Muslim population rate. So what does that mean for you? For example, if some regions have like a lot more Muslims than other regions, it's a bit tougher to find the right accommodation for it. Even if the places allow pets, still the community doesn't like it, so it's a big chance that you will get refused. So before you are traveling to those places, always make sure that you double check your booking. Even if they say it's pet friendly, it can be that they're like, they accept pets, but more like cats that they accept and not really dogs, or it can be that they don't like dogs to have in the house. And it could also mean that you need to skip on some few places, because Danique and I wanted to go from Koh Lanta to Koh Phi Phi, for example, and we couldn't make that transfer because the boats didn't allow Sarah, because it has a Muslim owner. And just know that in some cases you would need to skip the destination that you want to go to and be flexible with it. And you also have to respect that, because you're still a visitor, and pets are getting more and more introduced out here, but it's still a bit of taboo to say it like that. In the Philippines they are a huge pet lover and every pet is allowed, even in the malls if they wear some underwear. But in other parts of Asia it's not really the case. As you can see, Doggy Dude is living the life up here and loving it. Another good subject is accommodations, because if you're traveling with your pet you have to stay somewhere. But the big question is, where are we going to stay? Where are we going to accept pets? It's very different, because in a lot of places they have different rules. We have traveled to Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Philippines, Malaysia, where we are currently right now, and every country was a bit different with that. For example, in Vietnam there are huge pet lovers and they accepted it in most of the places. In Malaysia it's a bit trickier to find the pet-friendly places, but in Thailand it was very easy because tourists are more common over there and pets as well because of that. So how do you find the right place for you? We use always Airbnb. Why do we use Airbnb? It's because they have one good feature, and that is because you can get in contact with the owner before you do your booking. So we could just also filter on pet-friendly places, which you can also do on booking.com, but on booking.com you have to book first before you can send a text. And on Airbnb we could send a text straight away. So for example, before we do the booking on Airbnb, we always send a text to the owners that would say, hey, my name is Harley Hoffman, I'm traveling as well with my dog. I noticed that you are pet friendly. Just double checking to be sure, are you really pet friendly? Because I don't want to show up at your place and get refused. So me and Danique would always ask those questions just to be on the safe side, and we always would ask like, hey, is there like an additional price for the pet? Because sometimes they charge a lot more money for the pet, like 20 or 30%, and sometimes they tell you after the stay that you need to pay for the pet as an extra person, which is alright if you know it up front, but if they come with it afterwards, it always feels a bit like you are getting scammed. So a pro tip from me is always double check that about the price. You can also use like booking.com, but it's a bit harder because a lot of places are not really pet friendly, they just put a notification on. You can also find really good places if you just type in Google Maps and type in pet friendly hotels. You also see a lot of good options over there, but still you will need to call it, and not everybody speaks perfect English, so it's a bit trickier. So Airbnb is the most convenient app to use if you're traveling abroad. We use it a lot and I would highly recommend it. Not sponsored or anything. So also a good thing that I wanted to talk about is the cost of traveling with your pet, because what can you expect? Always travel with Sarah. Every 2 or 3 weeks we travel to a new destination, and there are a lot of things that can happen or that you can expect. For example, if you would be able to go with the public transport, it's not really that special, you just pay for an additional ticket. But if you are not allowed to take your dog to the public transport, you need to get a private taxi. So instead of paying €5, it could end up to 30 to 40 euros for a taxi of 2 to 3 hours. It is still not a lot of money, but if you're traveling every 2 or 3 weeks or every 3 days because you are short on time, it will add up in cost. Also with the accommodation, keep in mind that you just pay for an additional person. So if you are a couple and you are traveling, keep in mind that you are just traveling with an extra kid with you, so you also have to pay up for that. Also with a taxi, if we ever would get in a taxi, I would also text them through Grab like, hey, I'm having a pet with me, is that okay? Because I don't like to be refused on the spot, and I would always tip a little bit because they're picking you up and allowing it. I can understand if they would refuse a dog in the car if I wouldn't know the dog. That is something that you can keep in mind. Also, in some case you would need to be flying if you would like to go to another country, but I will get to that at the end of this video. So with the accommodations, it will be a bit higher to travel with your pet, also with the cost of transportation. About pet food is the same price at home, so you would just pay average 2 or 3 euros the kilo. When you get some pet food, it's the same price at home. And also a quick pro tip, Sarah is a medium-sized dog, around the 15-16 kg. That would mean that in some places they would only accept small pets. That's why you always double check it as well, because a small pet is nothing like Sarah. Funny story, the first day that we arrived in the Philippines, we checked everything was alright, but once we arrived they only accepted small pets. So can you imagine, after a 17-18 hour flight and transit, finally arriving to your place in midnight, 2-3 a.m, having the guard refuse you, like all your suitcase, all your stuff out there in Manila. Not really a nice scenario. Thank God the owner was still awake and he was able to talk with the guard. In the end, the guard was just being a dickhead, literally. There were like bigger dogs than Sarah even in the accommodation, so I think he just wanted to make a point or something. But always make sure that you tackle these things up front, because you just want to check in, relax, drop your stuff and go out again to explore. And you don't want to have these scenarios. But in the end, everything worked out. And another really good thing is border crossings. If you're traveling to Thailand, you are in the center of Asia and you can go anywhere that you want. Like for example, you can go to Malaysia, you can go to Laos, Cambodia, and from there you can go to Vietnam. Sarah has seen every border there is almost. We have been to more than 4 to 5 border crossings, I think. And what are some things that you can keep in mind? We always make sure that Sarah, her vaccination and her paperwork is up to date, so that she has the right rabies vaccines, that she has a titer document that says that she has all the antibodies, so it's an official paper that we have for that. And next to that, we always make sure that she has her yearly vaccinations. Also, you would need a health certificate if you are going to cross the border, and officially you need an in and export permit to cross the border, but in our experience we never really needed an import permit or an export permit. We did ask a lot of pet shipper back then, like, hey guys, can you help us, can you give us some advice, because online there isn't a lot to find about this subject, and they would charge us 300 to 400 euros to get papers that you don't really need. So this was from our experience, and our experience, like I said, we traveled 4 to 5 different borders, maybe even more, and traveled to 8 countries in total with her. But in our experience, you never really had to show an in or export permit. It was only one time that they were looking at the paperwork, which was in Vietnam, and it was so funny because we gave her passport, we gave all the documents, because we always keep everything up to date. So if they ask for anything, you don't have to worry about this. We didn't have an officially in or export permit, so keep that in mind. But this man looked at Sarah's passport and at the papers, and I don't really think he understands what was in it. So that was quite funny. But furthermore, most of the officers out there, they looked at Sarah and they didn't really know what to think about it, because it's not so common to take your dog from one country to another country over here in Asia. So yeah, it was really easy. They didn't even ask for her papers 9 of the 10 times, not even her vaccination card or health record. They just laughed at us, to say it like that. So if you want to cross your with your pet to Laos, to Cambodia for example, just make sure that you have a health certificate, have all her paperwork up to date and a rabies certificate for in case they ask anything, you can show them those paperworks, but you don't have anything to worry about. Please don't get a fancy pet transporter, you can just do it yourself. So that's my biggest tip. Also, I'm not a big fan of pet transporters. Why? Because they charge too much money for paperwork that you can do yourself. So always make sure that you know what kind of papers you would need before you starting something. And if you do have any questions about this object, please feel free to contact us. We have so much experience gained in those 2 years that we would love to help you. So that brings me to my last subject, and that is flying with your pet. Sarah, be nice, other people can be here as well. Sarah also always likes to make a statement. So flying with your pet can be tricky, and I am going to make a full video of everything that you need to know about flying with your pet, like the paperwork, the right crates, what kind of prices can you expect, and many more things that I will tackle with that. Also, can you do it yourself? Do you need a pet shipper? But that is everything that I'm going to show you in my next YouTube video. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow for more, put the notification bell on. And if you have any questions for us guys, let us know. My name is Harley. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.